You're leaving me, for her? Are you serious right now? Marcus didn't flinch. He didn't blink. He just stood there with his suitcase half-zipped and said, "She's more driven. You don't push me. You've become comfortable." That's when I noticed the necklace. The gold pendant with the tiny diamond I'd bought him for our 5th anniversary. The one he said he lost on a business trip last year. And now she was wearing my jewelry, sleeping in my bed, and planning a future with my husband. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I stood there in my own living room, our wedding photos still hanging behind him, and realized he'd been planning this for months. The worst part? He actually thought I'd cry. That I'd beg. That I'd compete with her. No. I just watched him go. And I made a promise right there. You don't get to walk over me and win. If you're watching this video, please like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching my revenge story from. I want to know how far it has traveled. My name is Elise. I was the quiet force behind my husband's business success. The woman who built connections, managed finances, coached him through every pitch, and smiled from the sidelines while he soaked up the spotlight. I liked staying in the background. I never wanted credit. Until the day he decided I wasn't worth standing beside anymore. I didn't cry. I documented everything. While Marcus packed his clothes and his toothbrush and his stupid cologne, I sat on our bed with my laptop open. I backed up every file from our shared drives. I changed passwords to accounts I'd set up for him. I called my lawyer before he even left the driveway. People think grief makes you weak. They're wrong. Grief made me clear. Marcus thought I was soft because I didn't fight him for attention at networking events. He thought I was boring because I preferred reading contracts to going to clubs. He never understood that quiet doesn't mean powerless. She was flashier. Louder. More motivated, he said. In reality, she was using him for access. And when she got hired at a fast-growing tech startup, he thought he'd hit the jackpot. He drained our joint account that same night. Transferred $43,000 to his personal checking. Left me with barely enough to cover utilities. I found the transfer notification the next morning. Sat at the kitchen table staring at my phone. My hands didn't shake. I just opened a new document and started writing down every transaction, every date, every lie. Marcus thought he was smart. But he forgot who taught him how to read a balance sheet. The woman he left me for worked for me. She just didn't know it yet. 9 months earlier, I'd quietly acquired a tech startup through my investment firm. It was a clean deal, handled through a holding company. My name never appeared on the paperwork that employees saw. I preferred it that way. Less attention meant more freedom. The startup was called Apex Solutions. Young team, aggressive growth, decent product. They needed capital and strategic guidance. I provided both. And somewhere in that building, on the 4th floor in the marketing department, sat Vanessa Cole. The woman who was now sleeping in my bed. Marcus had introduced us at a conference last year. "This is Vanessa," he'd said, grinning. "She's doing incredible things in digital strategy." I'd shaken her hand. Smiled. Told her it was nice to meet her. She'd looked past me the entire conversation, focusing on Marcus like I was just decoration. Now I understood why. She thought she was climbing. Thought she'd traded up. A successful man, a nice house, a future full of opportunities. What she didn't know was that her entire career was sitting in my portfolio. The fund transfer gutted me. Not because of the money, though $43,000 wasn't nothing. It gutted me because it proved he'd planned this. You don't drain a joint account on impulse. You think about it. You calculate. You choose cruelty. I sat in my home office, the same office where I'd helped Marcus prepare for every major presentation he'd ever given, and looked at the empty account balance. My lawyer called back within the hour. "Elise, We can freeze his access and file for emergency relief, she said. Her voice was calm, professional. But you need to move fast. I did. By that afternoon, I'd filed paperwork. By the next morning, Marcus's access to everything connected to my income was cut off. His credit cards, tied to my accounts, were cancelled. His business expenses, which I'd been covering for 2 years, stopped flowing. He called me 3 times that day. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. Elise, what the hell? You're being vindictive. Grow up. Vindictive. That's what protecting yourself looked like to him. I saved the voicemail and sent it to my lawyer. Friends started picking sides. And it wasn't mine. Our social circle had always been more his than mine. I was the quiet wife who showed up to dinners and smiled politely while everyone else talked business. They didn't know what I did for work. Marcus never explained it. When people asked, he'd say, "Oh, Elise does some consulting," and change the subject. So when the divorce news spread, they believed his version. She just couldn't keep up, I heard someone say at a fundraiser I'd attended out of obligation. Vanessa's a go-getter. You can see why Marcus needed that energy. I was standing 10 feet away. They didn't even lower their voices. Another friend, a woman I'd known for 6 years, sent me a text. Maybe this is a chance for you to figure out who you are outside of Marcus. You were always so dependent on him. Dependent. I'd funded his failed business ventures twice. Covered his rent before we got married. Introduced him to investors who actually believed in his ideas because I vouched for him. But sure. I was dependent. I stopped answering group messages. Stopped going to events. Let them believe whatever Marcus was telling them. I had better things to do. She posted about her power couple life. I saw it on a Thursday morning. Vanessa's social media account, public and proud, building empires with the man I love, briefcase red heart. The photo showed her and Marcus inside an office. Modern furniture, glass walls, motivational posters. And behind them, barely visible but definitely there, was the Apex Solutions logo on the wall. My company's name. Right there in her victory post. I zoomed in. Studied every detail. The office layout matched the headquarters I'd visited during the acquisition meeting. The furniture I'd approved in the budget. Even the plant in the corner, a fiddle-leaf fig I'd suggested to the interior designer. She thought she was living her best life. Thought she'd won some prize. Meanwhile, she was literally celebrating inside a building I owned. I didn't comment on the post. Didn't like it. Didn't share it. I printed it out and added it to a folder on my desk. Marcus had taught me one useful thing during our marriage: always keep receipts. The assistant slipped up. I received an email from my legal counsel. It had been forwarded from Apex's HR department. Someone had accidentally CC'd the wrong address on an internal thread. The email chain was between Vanessa and a junior employee named Kyle. Vanessa was pressuring him to approve personal expenses on the company card. Dinners, spa visits, a weekend trip to Napa. Just put it under client development, Vanessa had written. Nobody checks these things closely. Kyle had responded nervously, I don't know. I could get in trouble. Vanessa's reply, you want to move up here or not? This is how things work. I forwarded the email to my head of compliance. Added a note, flag this. Monitor quietly. She responded within minutes, already on it. I sat back in my chair and felt something cold settle in my chest. This wasn't just about Marcus leaving me anymore. This was about someone abusing power in a company I'd invested in. Using my resources to fund her lifestyle while bullying employees. Now it was personal. And professional. I saw them at the gala. And they laughed at me. The annual tech industry gala was impossible to avoid. I'd sponsored it for 3 years running. My firm's name was on the program. I had to attend. I wore black. Simple, elegant, expensive. Walked in alone. And there they were. Marcus in a tuxedo I'd helped him pick out 2 years ago. Vanessa in a red dress that probably cost more than her monthly salary. They stood near the bar, laughing with a group of people I vaguely recognized. Then Vanessa saw me. Whispered something to Marcus. They both looked my way and smiled. Not friendly smiles. Smug ones. Marcus raised his glass slightly, like he was toasting me. Mocking me. I didn't react. Didn't look away. Just held his gaze for 3 seconds, then turned and walked toward the investor tables. Inside, my heart was pounding. My hands wanted to shake. But I kept my face neutral. Kept my posture straight. They thought they'd won. Thought they'd humiliated me. They had no idea I was the lead investor in the company Vanessa worked for. No idea that her salary came from my funds. No idea that her career was built on my money. Let them laugh. She tried to network with me. I let her talk. Vanessa approached me near the dessert table. I saw her coming and didn't move. Hi, she said brightly, extending her hand. I don't think we've officially met. I'm Vanessa Cole, Head of Strategic Marketing at Apex Solutions. Head of Strategic Marketing. That was a stretch. She was a senior associate at best. I shook her hand. Nice to meet you. I saw your name on the sponsor list, she continued. You're in investments, right? I'd love to pick your brain sometime about growth strategies. We're doing some incredible work at Apex. Incredible work. Using company funds for personal expenses and pressuring junior staff. That sounds interesting, I said, keeping my voice pleasant. What kind of growth are you focused on? She launched into a pitch. Talked about user acquisition, market penetration, brand positioning. Used buzzwords she probably learned from a podcast. I nodded. Asked a few questions. Let her think I was impressed. You should come by the office sometime, she said. I'd love to show you what we're building. Maybe I will, I replied. She smiled, satisfied, and walked back to Marcus. I watched them leave together. Watched her lean into him, whisper something that made him laugh. And I smiled. Because she just pitched me on my own company. The anonymous HR complaint arrived. It came through Apex's formal reporting system. Someone had filed a detailed complaint against Vanessa Cole. Harassment. Misuse of company funds. Creating a hostile work environment for junior staff. The complaint included dates, screenshots, witness names. My compliance team forwarded it to me with a note, "This is serious. We need to investigate." I read through every page. The pattern was clear. Vanessa had been using her position to manipulate younger employees. Pressuring them to cover for her expense fraud. Threatening their job security if they refused. One person described feeling scared to come to work. I closed the file and stared at my computer screen. This wasn't about my failed marriage anymore. This was about protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. People who were just trying to do their jobs without being bullied by someone who thought her relationship with Marcus made her untouchable. I sent a message to the board, launch a formal investigation. Full audit of expenses and personnel complaints. I want this done properly. They agreed immediately. Vanessa had no idea what was coming. He took my clients. I discovered it by accident. One of my longtime clients, a software developer named Andre, mentioned that Marcus had reached out to him. He said he was starting a new consulting firm and wanted to bring me on board. Use some of the same strategies you and I developed last year. Thought that was weird. I felt my stomach drop. Marcus had access to my client files. He'd been in my office hundreds of times. Seen my notes, my strategies, my proprietary methods. And now he was using them to build his own business. I called my attorney immediately. He's stealing intellectual property. I want a cease and desist sent today. She drafted it within hours. Sent it to Marcus with copies to every client he'd contacted. The response came fast. Marcus called me, furious. You can't stop me from working, he yelled. Those ideas aren't trademarked. The strategies are documented, I said calmly. With dates and client names. Try me. He hung up. Andre called me the next day. Got a weird letter from Marcus's lawyer. Just wanted you to know I'm staying with you. What he did was shady. 3 other clients said the same thing. Marcus's new firm died before it even launched. I found her resume. It arrived in my inbox from Apex's HR director. Vanessa had applied for a leadership promotion. Director of Marketing Operations. 50% salary increase. Her resume listed credentials I knew she didn't have. An MBA from a mid-tier program she'd never attended. Certifications in project management she'd never earned. References from executives she'd never worked with. I forwarded it to the compliance team. Verify every item on this resume. Every degree, every certification, every previous employer. They called me 2 days later. Half of it's fabricated. The MBA doesn't exist. The certifications are fake. 2 of her references have never heard of her. Document everything, I said. Add it to the investigation file. The board was notified immediately. Fraud wasn't something they took lightly. Vanessa was building her empire on lies. And it was all catching up. She took credit for my work. An article appeared in a tech industry magazine. Rising Star, How Vanessa Cole Transformed Apex Solutions Marketing Strategy. I read it 3 times. Every strategy mentioned in that article came from the transition plan I drafted during the acquisition. The rebranding approach, the target audience analysis, the content marketing framework. My work. My ideas. My plans. And Vanessa's name was all over it. The article quoted her, I believe in bold moves and calculated risks. That's how you build something lasting. Bold moves. She'd literally copy-pasted my documents and called them hers. I forwarded the article to my legal team. This is my intellectual property. I want it documented. They added it to the growing file. The fraud case was getting stronger every day. I sat in my office that night, looking at the article's glossy photos of Vanessa smiling confidently in my company's building, and felt nothing but cold determination. She wanted credit. She'd get consequences instead. He proposed. With my ring. The photos appeared on social media Sunday morning. Marcus and Vanessa on a beach somewhere tropical. Her hand extended toward the camera, showing off an engagement ring. My grandmother's ring. The one Marcus had begged me to let him hold on to, for safekeeping, after my grandmother died. The one I'd agreed to because I trusted him. The one he promised he'd never let anything happen to. And now it was on her finger. I stared at the photo until my vision blurred. That ring was the last piece of my grandmother I had. She'd worn it for 60 years. Told me stories about my grandfather proposing with it in 1954. Made me promise I'd pass it down someday. And Marcus had given it to someone else. I called my estate attorney immediately. He took property that wasn't his. I want it back. She filed the paperwork that afternoon. Sent Marcus a legal notice demanding the ring's return within 7 days. The comments on his post were disgusting. Power couple goals. So happy for you both. True love wins. I didn't comment. Didn't react publicly. Just added the screenshots to my folder and waited. Marcus was about to learn that some things aren't his to give away. The assistant came to me. The message arrived through an encrypted email. No name. Just a subject line, you need to know the truth about Vanessa Cole. I opened it carefully. The message was from Kyle, the junior employee from the earlier email chain. He'd been the one who filed the HR complaint. "I'm terrified to come forward publicly," he wrote. "But someone needs to stop her. She's stealing from the company. Lying about her credentials. Threatening anyone who questions her. I have proof. Emails, expense reports, recorded conversations. I'll give you everything. Just please protect me." I responded immediately. "You're protected. Send me what you have. I'll handle this legally and keep your identity confidential." The files came through within an hour. Dozens of documents. Expense reports showing luxury purchases filed as client meetings. Emails where Vanessa pressured Kyle and others to falsify records. Even a recording where she threatened to destroy someone's career if they didn't cooperate. I forwarded everything to my legal team and the board. Kyle had given me everything I needed to end this. The audit began. The board called an emergency meeting. I attended remotely, watching from my home office as they reviewed the evidence. Expense fraud totaling over $70,000. Falsified credentials on employment records. Harassment complaints from 4 different employees. Theft of intellectual property. Misrepresentation of job performance. The list was long. The evidence was solid. "We need to launch a full internal audit," the CFO said. "This is serious." I spoke up. "I agree. And I want external auditors involved. This needs to be handled by the book." They voted unanimously. The audit would begin immediately. Vanessa had no idea. She was still posting on social media about her promotion prospects. Still showing off her engagement ring. Still living in my house with my ex-husband, wearing my grandmother's ring, working at my company. But the walls were closing in. And I was the one tightening the space. The board meeting was quiet. Too quiet. I attended in person this time. Walked into the conference room where I'd first signed the acquisition papers. The same room where Vanessa had probably sat for meetings, thinking she was important. The board members looked uncomfortable. They'd reviewed the audit findings. Seen the evidence. Understood the liability. "The audit confirms everything," the CFO said. "Expense fraud, credential falsification, harassment, IP theft. It's all documented." I sat at the head of the table. My table. My company. My decision. "What's your recommendation?" I asked. "Immediate termination," the head of HR replied. "With cause. No severance. And we should consider legal action for the stolen funds." The room waited for my response. I thought about Marcus laughing at the gala. About Vanessa pitching me on my own company. About my grandmother's ring on her finger. About Kyle and the other employees who'd been afraid to speak up. "Do it," I said. "Terminate her today. Recover the funds. I'll sign the paperwork." Nobody argued. Nobody defended her. The vote was unanimous. Her termination letter was signed by me. The document sat on my desk Friday afternoon. Clean, legal, final. To Vanessa Cole, "Your employment with Apex Solutions is hereby terminated, effective immediately, for cause. Violations include expense fraud, credential falsification, harassment of subordinate employees, and misappropriation of company resources. All company property must be returned within 24 hours. Legal action may follow." I read it twice. Made sure every word was correct. Then I signed it. Not as the scorned ex-wife. Not as the woman seeking revenge. But as the majority stakeholder protecting her company and her employees. HR delivered the letter at 4:47 p.m. Security escorted Vanessa from the building 15 minutes later. I watched from my office window as she walked to her car, carrying a small box of personal items. Her face was red. Her hands were shaking. She pulled out her phone. Probably calling Marcus. Good. Let him try to fix this. Let him realize that the woman he chose over me had just destroyed herself. And that I'd simply signed the papers confirming it. His business collapsed. Marcus's new venture had depended entirely on Vanessa's position at Apex. She'd been his connection to potential investors, his source of industry credibility, his proof that he was worth taking seriously. Now she was unemployed and under investigation for fraud. His investor calls went unanswered. His pitch meetings were cancelled. His business partner, someone Vanessa had introduced him to, backed out completely. Within 3 weeks, Marcus's startup was dead. I heard about it through Andre, who heard it from someone else in the network. Marcus is scrambling, Andre told me. Trying to salvage something. But nobody wants to touch him now that his girlfriend got fired for fraud. I didn't feel satisfaction. Didn't feel vindication. Just felt tired. This wasn't what I'd wanted. I'd wanted a partner. A marriage. A future. Instead, I'd gotten betrayal. And now I was watching everything burn. But I hadn't started the fire. Marcus and Vanessa had done that themselves. I just refused to get burned with them. He came to my door. It was raining. Thursday evening. I heard the knock and looked through the peephole. Marcus stood there, soaking wet, still wearing the same jacket he'd worn the day he left. He looked smaller somehow. Older. Defeated. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. Can we talk? He asked quietly. I crossed my arms. About what? About us. About everything. His voice cracked. I made a mistake, Elise. I see that now. Vanessa, she wasn't who I thought she was. I shouldn't have left. I shouldn't have said those things. I was an idiot. I watched him. Studied his face. Looked for the man I'd married 12 years ago. He wasn't there anymore. I can't get a loan, he continued, desperation creeping in. Can't find investors. Everyone knows what happened. My reputation is destroyed. I need help, Elise. I need you. I reached behind the door and picked up an envelope I'd prepared weeks ago. Legal documents. A lawsuit for breach of intellectual property and theft of personal property. I handed it to him. What's this? He asked. Read it, I said. Then I closed the door. Locked it. Walked back to my living room. Behind me, I heard him open the envelope. Heard him swear. Heard him knock again, harder. I didn't answer. I didn't say a word. Marcus called 17 times that night. Left voicemails that ranged from angry to pleading to desperate. You can't do this to me. Please, Elise, just talk to me. I gave you everything. This is how you repay me. I deleted each one without listening all the way through. My lawyer called the next morning. He wants to settle. Offered to return the ring and drop any claims to shared assets. He's panicking. Tell him I'll consider it if he returns everything, I said. The ring, the money from the joint account, and a signed agreement that he never uses my strategies or contacts my clients again. She called back an hour later. He agreed to everything. The ring arrived by courier that afternoon. My grandmother's ring, cleaned and polished, in its original box. I held it in my hand and cried for the first time since Marcus had left. Not because I missed him. Because I had this piece of my grandmother back. Because I'd fought for something that mattered and won. The money returned to my account within 3 days. The signed agreement followed. Marcus was gone from my life. Legally. Financially. Completely. And I could finally breathe. I took my name back. The business paperwork was straightforward. Every title, every strategy document, every client file that had Marcus's name attached. I filed amendments, updated registrations, reclaimed everything under my own name. Then I went public. I wrote an article for the same magazine that had featured Vanessa. Building from the Shadows, Why Women's Quiet Power Matters. I talked about staying in the background. About supporting partners who took credit. About the strength it takes to build something without needing applause. And I revealed, for the first time publicly, that I was the lead investor in Apex Solutions. That I'd been building my investment firm for 8 years. That the consulting work people dismissed was actually a multi-million-dollar portfolio. The article went viral. Messages flooded my inbox. Women thanking me for speaking up. Entrepreneurs asking for advice. Investors wanting to collaborate. Marcus saw it. I knew because he sent one final text, "I never knew you were capable of this." I blocked his number. He was right. He never knew. He never asked. He never cared enough to look past his own reflection and see who I actually was. That was his loss. Not mine. He lost everything. I got it back. 6 months after Marcus left, I received an update from my lawyer. Marcus had filed for bankruptcy. His business ventures had all failed. He'd moved into a small apartment across town. Vanessa had left him 3 weeks after her termination, moved to another state, and blocked his number. The mutual friends who'd sided with him were silent now. Some reached out with awkward apologies. We didn't know the whole story. Marcus misled us. We should have asked your side. I didn't respond to most of them. Didn't need their validation anymore. Kyle, the assistant who'd come forward, got promoted. I made sure of it. He deserved recognition for his courage. Apex Solutions grew by 40%. Our employee satisfaction scores improved. The toxic culture Vanessa had created was gone, replaced by something healthier. And me? I stopped hiding in the background. Started attending conferences under my own name. Started speaking up in board meetings. Started owning my success instead of deflecting it. People noticed. Where have you been hiding? Someone asked at a networking event. I wasn't hiding, I replied. You just weren't looking. I built something bigger. A year after the divorce, I launched a new initiative through my firm. A mentorship program for women entrepreneurs. Specifically for women who'd been overlooked, underestimated, or pushed aside. We provided funding, guidance, and connections. No strings attached. Just support. The first group of 10 women graduated 6 months later. 3 of them launched successful startups. 2 secured major investment deals. All of them told me I'd changed their lives. I spoke at the same gala where Marcus and Vanessa had mocked me. This time, I stood on stage accepting an award for leadership and innovation. The room gave me a standing ovation. I looked out at the crowd and saw faces I recognized. Some had supported me. Others had doubted me. A few had laughed when Marcus left. None of that mattered anymore. I'd built something lasting. Something real. Something that helped people. And I'd done it without compromising who I was. Without becoming loud or flashy or cruel. I'd done it by being exactly who I'd always been. Just without anyone trying to dim my light. I didn't get revenge. I got myself back. People asked me sometimes if I regretted how everything happened. If I wished things had ended differently. The truth? No. Marcus leaving forced me to stop hiding. Forced me to own my success. Forced me to realize that I'd been making myself smaller for someone who didn't deserve the space I'd given him. Vanessa's fraud exposed itself. I didn't manufacture evidence or sabotage her. She destroyed her own career through her choices. I just refused to look away when the truth surfaced. The hardest part wasn't losing my marriage. It was accepting that the marriage I thought I had never really existed. Marcus never saw me. Never valued me. Never understood what I brought to his life. But that was his blindness. Not my failure. I recorded a podcast interview about the experience. Talked about quiet strength. About protecting yourself without apology. About building something meaningful instead of just seeking revenge. The episode went viral. Thousands of comments. Women sharing their own stories. Men apologizing for not seeing their partners clearly. People finding hope in my words. One comment stayed with me: "You didn't just survive. You transformed." That was it exactly. He left me for someone louder. Someone flashier. Someone he thought was more successful. But silence was always my sharpest weapon. And success? I'd had it all along. I just stopped letting anyone else define it for me. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What does family mean to you? Please share below and subscribe to this channel for more stories like mine.